Welcome to the film room, everybody. This is your host Jose Cantu. It's gonna be back. It's good. Second episode. We're back in. I've been on a grinder of three. I got three movies down that I needed to see from last year. That I was way behind. And that's Knives Out. We got to see Knives Out. And we saw No Other Choice at the Angelica, and which was a packed out theater. I've been paying attention to the theater averages on No Other Choice, and I've been hearing has been sold out for a lot of theaters, and I really was pushing my luck with the with that movie buying the tickets, because like by the time I saw I think it was like 4 hours before I actually wanted to buy the tickets. The movie was nearly sold out, so luckily we got pretty good seats for that. And then we saw Eddington, which I was planning on seeing in the theaters, and then we didn't get to. There was just a bunch of shit going on. I think I was also in the middle of filming when that movie came out. The movie came out with like July-ish. And I've seen every Ari Aster's films in theaters. I really wanted to keep that streak going. So I didn't get to see it in theaters though. But it was a very interesting film. Obviously we'll talk more about that. I'll try to break this all down for you guys, because 2 out of the 3 of films, I will say this: I did like all 3 films that I saw. I do want to talk Knives Out just for a little bit. I'm not like I love the Knives Out series. I think they're really fun. I think they are. I thought this one's a little bit more predictable than the first 2. I think the second one is the first one's I think is still the best one. The second one was fun and entertaining, and but I kind of forgot a little bit about what the mystery was and who even was the suspect, and I don't know. But I'm glad I saw that movie's in theater. I'm very happy that movie came out in theaters, and at least there was some support for the movie theaters. But the third one I thought the third one was a little bit better than the second one, only based off because I feel like the third one was more of a personal story that Ryan Johnson wanted to tell. With the second one, just kind of just bolstering up with a fun cast, a bigger budget, and you could play around a lot more. Third one really took a step back in terms of budget, I feel like, and really focused on a lot about the 2 characters, the priest and then Daniel Craig's character. And I thought that movie carried a better message of dealing with religions, religious and really sticking to your morals, right? And trying to stick to what you are believing. No matter what situation you're in, you kind of want to you sometimes revert back to where you stood your ground on. And I thought that was really fun. But is it gonna be? Can I talk about it as much as the next 2 films? Not so much. I do want to say this, and watching this film, if it was any other mystery film that's turned out by Netflix, you wouldn't really notice the directing and the shots they use in this film. And I think Ryan Johnson gets a lot of flack because of his participation in the Star Wars movies, and I don't think a lot of people still forgive him for that, or really put a really big stank on his resume because of it. And I'm not a Star Wars fan, so maybe you still have this like stink guy towards him, and that could be, you know what I mean? Like I'm sure Joel Schumacher, if I grew up more of it, because I like the Batman franchise. And if I grew up in my teens during 1998, 1997, and he ruined Batman, and because of Batman and Robin, I would have been furious, right? Probably wouldn't see any of his shit after that. But Ryan Johnson is still a really good director. There are some shots in here. There's a shot in here with when they do a flashback, and the mom, she breaks open the church, right? She get that big ass red sun in the back, right? Just very directly center of the frame. and she's on a rampage, and you just can't. I was just like, oh my god, that scene had a very good vibes of Bram Stoker's Dracula from Francis Ford Coppola. The opening scene of that film of Bram Stoker's Dracula was very an artistic style that I really liked from that movie. And I thought like that shot itself in Knives Out was a good semi Sam Raimi's like Evil Dead status, just with the angle shooting out of her ripping up the church, and then that, just like I said, that a couple of shots of the exterior on the background was like this is why this is why he's considered a really 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 great director, and I don't think he gets his credit enough because of his involvement in Star Wars and his, I guess you could say he ruined the franchise in a lot of people's eyes. But dude, when I saw Brick was obviously my first introduction to him, and that was a film that really had a print on me when I watched it. And Looper as well. Looper was a film that when I saw it in theaters, I was like, "Fuck, dude, this is so just." It was just so fucking cool, seeing there's like they do some really good montages in that film where Gordon Levitt is he's starting to like transition to the older Bruce Willis uh look, and the style, the music, and everything. It was just like that his taste in it really like shows, right? And I think he does a lot of this in Knives Out 3. I think his directing really stands out a lot more than I think the first two films. Um, but so I wish they would continue it more. But I do think these films still belong in theaters. I think watching it with theater and watching the mystery unfold with a crowd, it just really, again, it brings that conversation of where do you go from here with what's considered theater and what's considered streaming. And I think the Knives Out films can be. I don't think they will be successful in the theaters anymore because I think like what has happened to Pixar a lot and a lot of the Disney film is during COVID is that we're now very accustomed to Knives Out being on streaming. So if you were to put the film out in theaters, I think a lot of audience would either be like confused, which I don't know. A lot they say that the audience are confused because of a habit. You get in a habit to go and see the movie theaters, and then it's not, and then you go see it in and then all of a sudden it's on streaming. You're like, where is it coming from? I think people would just be like, well, I could just not pay that much money, 60, $70 to go see in theaters when I know it's going to come out on Netflix within like 2 months, right? I can have patience for that. And that's what people are thinking. But overall, I like that movie a lot. I wouldn't say I liked it a lot, but I would say, it's a good solid like 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was a really good film. But like I said, it's on Netflix, and I would say go take the time and watch it. But what separates this film obviously is the next two films, and that's No Other Choice and Eddington. No Other Choice is such a hard film to review for me, and it's only because there's a couple of these films to me are very almost similar, right? Like both their themes are universal. No Other Choice, if you haven't seen it, it's same director that did Old Boy, um, and I think that's the film that you mentioned that a lot of people have seen. That a lot of like when you grow up, you gotta see Old Boy, right? It's the most fucked up movie you've seen, and then and then you kind of like either dive deeper into his filmography or you don't. Um, but Park Chan Wook is still a little bit underground, in America, I feel like. And what Parasite did for a lot of the Asian films is that I think the American audience are willing to take the chances to be like, okay, I'm very interested in Asian filmmaking because I think it's considered when it's at its top tier. I think it blows the water out a lot of the countries compare on film. And No Other Choice, I think, is doing that right now. But what this film is compared to Eddington, where they both have similar ideas, and where No Other Choice is about a guy who literally had the life, and then all of a sudden, technology or reality hits, and then it's all taken away, and a desperate man is willing to do anything to either have that lifestyle still, to make his family happy again, and willing to do whatever it takes. And that means, if that means murder, then he'll do it, right? And with Eddington, it's obviously universal because we all dealt with it. We all dealt with COVID. We all may have either have a different perception of how we dealt with it, or just political beliefs of how we wanted to deal with it or not. But we all, and at the end of the day, went through COVID, and we can watch this movie and be like, yeah, I see a lot of similarities, either that I've seen in person or online. Um, and that's where those two share similarities, because as I was comparing those two films, because I just saw them within like maybe a weekend apart, but with No Other Choice, I was thinking like, No Other Choice is a film where you have to watch it again, because the message of the movie, you don't want to overanalyze sometimes when you watch a film, because you get these videos sometimes, or you watch on Instagram, and you're like, it's not too deep, right? Like, there's things that, like, certain camera angles that directors chooses, right? When you choose your shot, sometimes it's just the frame, right? We're just like, I need an over the shoulder shot, and the explanation of why it doesn't have to be too deep. It's just like, I need a conversation. I need the conversation of this. Um, and sometimes some of these videos you see, I think, go over analyze, which is fine. Like, I think if you want to do that's fine. But there are things that I watch on Instagram, and I'm like, I think you're just thinking too deep, way too deep into it. And that could be I mean, that I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm just saying, like, with No Other Choice, there are shots in here that I do think you have to rewatch, because there's a lot of things happening behind of what I was gonna say. Like, the message is almost simple. I feel like, right, with No Other Choice. Um, at least that's what it's trying to give you. Uh, I think the last shot in this film is, you know, and I don't think there's any spoiler really, but it is these trees. He works for a paper company, and you see these trees just being chopped down, right, just by this machinery. Um, and you're thinking like, I don't want to talk about too much of the ending a bit, because like, I don't want, like, it would spoil a lot, and I really feel like you really should go on the journey with this guy that is back against the wall. Um, but I do think that, like, there's too many shots in this film where I'm like thinking like, well, why that one specifically? Why this shot? And why is it that a lot of these shots contain, like, I don't know the correct term for it, you know, but like, he'll look at a reflection, and then there would be like something either dissolve into the frame at a certain spot, and it's like a reflection. It could be his son, or it could be his wife, or maybe the person he's gonna kill. And you're thinking like, okay, what what does this mean? I feel like there's a lot more going on in this film that I'm not seeing, right? Because in the first viewing, I'm so much like, I try to go just along for the ride, uh, and try not to like overanalyze it, right? And then the second time, you can like breathe. I did that with one battle for another, where the first time I'm going along for the ride. Like, I'm gonna appreciate what Paul Thomas Anderson is giving me. Um, but I'm not gonna. I try to really just like overthink things, and try to piece things together as much as, because I think it's, and just enjoy the ride. But the second viewing with that, I was able to really like relax a little bit, because I know what's gonna happen, and then I can just look all around the frame, um, and certain song choices that they make, or certain transitions to this scene to the next scene, and I feel like you really can get a lot out of No Other Choice on the second or third viewing, uh, because I I don't know what it's like in Korea, where what's like in real, what is the difference when you lose your job compared to here and over there. Like the amount of job opportunities over there and here. It clearly he's saying to something that we both can resonate, and I think that's why I appreciate this film, because for someone that is in a different country, millions of miles away, I'm still very connecting with it, and it's just a really great film on on a choice that what would you do, and it just makes you evaluate a lot um about what would you do with your back against the wall. I'm about to have a kid, and at that point, if this was like 2008 or the 1930s or whatever it is, and an economic crisis, and I lose my job, or my job shuts down, and or during COVID, and the restaurant business shuts down, or the film business shuts down, it's like, well, what do I got to do to stand out, and we're going to be on the streets, or we're going to have to really take a step back and live a different lifestyle because of it. Uh, there's this film is driven by some ego. I will say that. I think No Other Choice, there is some choices where you kind of also think back in this character, like, if you just there's some ego, right? I think some people also fail and don't realize that they could succeed if they just let their ego go. I think that just kept telling me right now, where in this film, the character that the father makes, uh, you really like think like, dude, if and a lot of the characters in this film do this too, is, dude, if you just would have just set your pride aside and take another route, and you could still be successful on this route, but it's just gonna be a different the way you used to do things, then you eventually would be happy again. And I think some of these characters in this movie can be very selfish like that. Uh, and that I totally forgot about. Like, I remember coming out of the theater too, and I was thinking, like, you know, some people are back against the wall. They have this big overreaction, like they have to do the biggest thing in their life because something big happened to them in their life, where you think, and to counteract that, you got to do something even bigger to overcome the negative part that happened in your life, where you got to do something, you got to, just like overstep a lot of things, and be like extravagant with every life decision you got to make, like it's a life or death situation, when in reality, if this character or another character in this film that lost their job, if they just would have just like took the tiny steps and eventually get there, and just no patience sometimes, no patience, right? Sometimes when there's no other choice, there's always another choice, I feel like, right? The worst choice that anybody can ever make is society, and probably to kill somebody, right? And there's always another choice to probably not do that, if you really just look at a little bit more opportunities, or again, take a step this direction and live a little bit more, lower budget lifestyle. And, instead of 3 bedrooms, you're going to have to live in 2. Maybe the son and daughter are going to have to share a bedroom. It's not the worst thing. And I do like those decisions, because they're not dumb decisions, I think, right? But they make you think, like, well, I do know people like that. I have sometimes can be like that, where you've hit rock bottom, and the only thing you can think of is changing your whole life around. And I see this a lot with breakups with people. I see this a lot with people when they get their hearts broken, and their partner tells them that you didn't do A, B, and C, right? And then all of a sudden they break up with you, and you're doing A, B, and C times 10, and it's like almost a New Year's resolution, where you just go hardcore for the next month or two to rub it in their faces, show them what they're missing out, and then eventually reality hits again, where you start to like, okay, well, I'm kind of like not that person. I'm just going back to my old habits again. I feel like that's a lot of that with this. Some of the things that this movie has to say. Uh, Compared to Eddington, watching Eddington, there is a lot that goes on, but there's a lot of very specifics that go on where I feel like this movie you could watch it once and maybe twice if you really want to really like go back into that time like 6 years ago. It's crazy because when we watch Eddington 6 years ago, like or like a little, but we're about to hit like 6 years since I remember lockdown was 2020 of March, and you it's almost some of the things that happen in this movie are pretty funny, and not and it's just only because it's like a weird nostalgic because it's not that far long ago where it's nostalgic, but it's still nostalgic when you see people looking at their phones and it's like just man, I'm doing this. You get caught up and do the same thing, laying on bed and just scrolling, and eventually it just feeds into the negative algorithm, and you're just scrolling even more and more. Um, and this movie really like hits home, but it doesn't hit home on a repeat viewing because I think you could get everything you get out of this movie. This movie, directed by Ari Aster, um, is is not as deep as I feel like compared to I think Hereditary. I believe Hereditary is still his strongest film to date, and but that doesn't mean it's weird to say when someone's directional debut is still their strongest film after four films. And that shouldn't be a disrespect. That doesn't mean his films get worse and worse. Because a lot of the four films he has made are four completely different films. Even Midsummer and Hereditary are both horror films, or you can even say they're cult films too, and they are the same in the same subgenre, but they're two different types of films. The way I look at Hereditary and Midsummer is Hereditary is just a solid. I know it's not 90 minutes, but a solid like 90-minute, 2 hour film locked down. It is on your throat throughout the whole movie, and it's a fun fucking movie. It is scary. It is all this and jazz, right? And with Midsummer, even though they both share some similarities, just on the flip side of the color of the film is Midsummer is very bright, very long, very outdrawn, very lucid in a sense of I mean, literally, because most of the characters are tripping. But it is like a long, drawn out, bad acid trip. Where Hereditary is shrooms. Where shrooms to me don't last. I mean, they don't last that long, but they fucking hurt when they cut you or like you're about to come down on they fucking hurt, right? They hurt a lot. And it is 4 hours of just foot on the gas pedal with Hereditary, and Midsummer is a tab of acid, and you're just on along for the ride. And you don't know what you're gonna experience, but you know it's gonna be probably 12 hours, and you just gotta make it through. And they're completely two different films. And Beau is Afraid, I do think it is his weakest film. A lot of people that I've mentioned, I do like this film. I won't say anything wrong with that. That's totally fine. The more I even think about it, even after the movie, the first thing I could think of Beau is Afraid is that he was just given way too much money. And, so sometimes I think I'll mention this plenty of times on the podcast, on the show, is they were given way too much money. I think giving way too much money to a rising director can really hurt. Did he deserve it? I'm sure A24 was like, we profited so much money off these first two movies. Yes. Blank check. Yes. Okay. I get it. But there should be some obstacles and some pushback all the time on a director. So that way they can even if they are right, just kind of like challenge them, make sure they're that creative decision they're making. And if they start second guessing themselves, maybe it's because they know that sometimes this shot it's too long, it's too drawn, it's too weird, it's too obscure. And I think that Beau is Afraid is a lot of that. of too long, too obscure, too drawn out. Um, and I just didn't dig it. There are some. I think the first. I know I'm talking about reviewing his basically his filmography, but this does lead into Eddington. Is Bo was afraid of the first like 30 minutes to 45 minutes are really great, and then the last 2 hours are just I don't know. I awful. I just thought they were awful. Uh, and then you go to Eddington. Eddington didn't do well at the box office, and you kind of have to realize that it just wasn't. I think it might. It's like when United 93 and World Trade Center both came out, right? I think 2006, right, and 2007, and people just thought that was too soon. Now World Trade Center did a lot better than United 93, I think, because you have Nick Cage, right, as a firefighter trapped in the World Trade Center. That's going to garner a lot more people in theaters. And again, back then, theaters, people, you could put out a movie like that and people would go see. Uh, Eddington, is very under the radar and opened around the same time as Superman. And, you could say there's some Pedro Pascal fatigue, maybe, but he's not even really in this movie. If you watch the movie a lot, I felt like he was gone for most of the time in the movie, and I really did want to see that more and more bickerness between Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal's character. Just two different ideas, but yet are both nearly the same people behind closed doors. Um, I think with this movie, I love about it is that there's a lot more discussion to be had. One is because it's easier to talk about because it does point out George Floyd, does point out Black Lives Matter, and it does point out a lot more conspiracy that we're starting to open up now because of this. People not liking Fauci, people debating about masks and how did you feel about then, and then you think about now you're like, oh god damn it, dude, how fucking like some of the things you did back in those 6 years ago, and you're like, I shouldn't even have, the whole mask thing, right? You see all these people wearing masks, and then the conversation they had, and the movie really does get under your skin about like it. I happen to just understand just both sides of wear the mask or not wear the mask, and Joaquin's character is he a very inept sheriff? Yeah, he is. But there's a lot of heart. I don't know. I feel like I got with him out of this movie. Because he in the beginning you think like he means well. But then the more you learn about this movie and the more you get through this, I mean the theme of this movie is really just it's right after Pedro Pascal's character and his son, who is one of the biggest twats in movies that I've seen, character movies that I've seen in the last like 5 fucking years. That I could not wait. I cannot wait for the worst thing to happen to this guy. Pedro Pascal's son is it's just a fucking fucking cunt in this movie. But there's a scene in there where his son and him are arguing about distancing themselves at parties, and then his I forgot who brings up the mother. I think the son talks about your mom. Mom says something about this, and Pedro's like, I don't give a fuck what your mom says. And then the next scene is like this PSA of Pedro's character, just like my wife, his mother left us, and now I'm a single father, trying to, and it is the whole message of this movie. This movie itself is very like plays on you think everything around you is for you. um they think these companies are always going to have your back, but there's always something personal. There's always a personal agenda that you don't know behind closed doors that a lot of these companies make just out of spite, right? A lot of these characters' decisions making is because of a rumor that never even happened, right? A lot of he said, she said, on bullshit on both sides, and why they have these reactions. Um, which I just I didn't know how. Like I thought it was gonna be kind of annoyed of the certain nostalgic, like the just the social media stuff. It's gonna almost gonna be, is it gonna be eye rolling? But a lot of it was either very entertaining and very funny. Especially the grifter, who it, like the son of Pedro's character and the other white kid that are trying to bang this chick who is, has white guilt, and one of the characters is white, and he noticed that she supports this Black Lives Matters movement, so he gets involved in it, and then he transforms into a red pill, Charlie Kirk type of character, and just to fuck a bitch. And again, that is very relatable, um, to a lot of guys, single guys out there that, dude, all that, if I had to fucking fake my ideology and politics, because that's been a very make or break. I've heard story. I know people that won't like date people because of certain conservative beliefs or certain liberal beliefs that they have, that they're like, either this bitch don't do A, B, and C in bed, and then it's vice versa of this guy won't let me do A, B, C with my body, right? There's no communication, even though we have the most communication now than ever before because of social media. But there's just no clear communication on, well, let's just sit down and let's talk. Let's just talk about this. And a lot of these people's problems in this movie, it could have been solved. It what what I did like also about Eddington is the tension and the buildup that Ari Aster does with, um of just with the conversations that the characters go through. Some of the Dutch angles he uses, it kind of throws you off a bit. Uh, there is a certain part. Now, here's here I'm gonna go into a negative about this movie, and because I don't know why. I think it's because they use a Dutch angle in the shot in the scene. But there's two characters in here that really just like don't do as much, and you have such big name actors playing them with Austin Butler, Emma Stone. And I heard a review too where they mentioned Emma Stone's character is kind of like underutilized. So how are you going to use Emma Stone in just this role? And look, if you could get Emma Stone in a movie, if she wants to be a part of your movie, you put her in your fucking movie, right? Uh, but her character, I don't know, like, but I do see like having just, it could have been it could have been any other actress. I feel like that could have played that character, and there's not, again, this is not anything towards Emma Stone. I mean, she's a 2-time winning Oscar winner, but like there is something, right? There is something in this character that happens to Joaquin's character, and where it kind of, to me, it comes a little bit full circle of it, with his character's arc. But just the whole, like, her buying into the Austin Butler plays a character who's like this, I don't know, like fucking Manson guru type of shit, hippie fucking shit, right? This is why no one likes fucking hippies. Uh, she swoops him off his feet because Joaquin's character just doesn't pay attention to her. And I feel like that part of the movie was, I kind of slowed down. I nearly zoned out of that conversation when Austin Butler's character sits down with Joaquin's character and the mom and Emma Stone's character. That scene really dragged out a bit, and it kind of slows the film down. I feel like when we're getting on this like heated conversation, that, I mean, you do need a slow period in that movie, but I felt like that was just a more like a sit down, slow. Let me just kind of write a bunch of shit and then go back into the same rhythm that we're going to the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie. I just felt like that wasn't the best, well paced scene, and it really is like a drag me down type of scene where it's like it gets nearly, it's almost, to me it was boring. It was just a very boring scene. Her character, is she annoying and naggy? Yes, and I think that's part of her character. So I won't fault her of that. I just feel like putting, like, it's such a weird, like, yes, you got Emma Stone, and I don't know her character, and having Emma Stone and Austin Butler were odd choices, which is very odd choices. I felt like you could have done a more character actor than it just being a bigger distraction for what the film's message is. Um, I do want to dive a little bit into the ending because the way Leanne and I were talking about this and the ending itself, where the the ending, I the last like 20 minutes can either make or break for the movie. Um, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that Tarantino style bloodbath a bit. And like I don't think he wasn't. I mean, he maybe was inspired or not, but there's definitely some. I At least I felt like that was a big inspiration to have like a Tarantino type of shootout throughout the town, uh, and how violent it gets with the Antifa movement or the Antifa movement, whatever you want to call them. Uh, and then you get the last 5 minutes. What happens to Joaquin's character and what the movie does it mean, right? Because a lot of this movie it does show a lot of his perspective of scrolling, and scrolling through the his phone and constantly just feeding into information. So Joaquin's character and Emma Stone's character they're married, and you could tell right away there's not a the love is gone, or maybe the love was never even there in the first place at all. So you can obviously tell that there's something that Joaquin's character is just not contributing to their relationship. And why this means a lot is because in the end, where so he becomes, so spoiler, I'm gonna say spoiler right here, spoiler alert, if you get this far into it, spoiler alert. But he becomes paralyzed. He gets stabbed in on top of the head by one of the Antifa people that were trying to kill him because of some shit that he caused. Um, but uh, again, this goes back to No Other Choice, where a lot of the issues that Joaquin's character creates that he's trying to fix are things that if he just started from the inside and try to fix a lot of the things that are happening in his house and stop worrying about the outside issues, his life would have been a lot easier. Um, but all he does is really is looking at his phone and looking into the stuff that is going to only feed him into his anger. Now, the anger is is not what's happening on the outside. That stuff that he just can't control. It's a lot of the internal stuff. And a lot of the internal stuff is that he's the sheriff of this town, but in reality, he is as a big chicken shit as it gets. A lot of the confrontational stuff that he has when he does become violent, it's more like a shove, or he just walks away, or maybe he kind of screams and reacts and like a baby, but then again leaves the situation. There's times where he gets slapped around and just takes it, and he's supposed to be the sheriff of this town. The only time he ever really gets stands up for himself is at a grocery store, maybe, and and then but his intentions were never to do it for the person he was trying to help out. It was really for himself. Um, but and going back to where the scrolling and stuff begins, because it only feeds like a lot of this film, it takes place as this is his POV shot and him just scrolling, right? Everything that feeds into it. And at the end of the movie, right, this big tech takes over Eddington, and lives in this. I forgot really. I really got kind of confused how eventually he gets to this big house and everything. I think maybe because more I was just like kind of like wrapping everything around with just the action that just happened before. But he he's paralyzed, right? He just can't move. Now he lives with his mother-in-law, who is Emma Stone's mom in this movie, and he can't do anything. He's gotta just sit there and just take it, right? And the last the second to last shot is the mother-in-law showing showing Joaquin Phoenix where his wife is at now. She's obviously left with the Austin Butler character, and is on the screen, right? And the one thing that he's been avoiding the whole time is and not and that hasn't been able to he hasn't been able to make happy is now finally happy on this on screen, and he can't do anything about it, right? He can't scroll past it. It's what his algorithm. I feel like his algorithm has been telling us the whole time. This is what you that would have made you happy if you just would have focused on this. But the whole time you've been scrolling through your algorithm to find outside problems that you can't even fix because it's beyond you. And what you should have focused on was your wife, your house, and things you could um obviously you could progress into something bigger, and you're making your life have a more fulfill meaning than running for mayor for the town. Like you're making all these big distractions that are out of your control. And right here on screen is something that, since you're so paralyzed that you can't even say anything. He can't even say anything in this. He can't even say your score past it or whatever, but he's got to sit there and watch his wife have a child with Austin Butler's character, and you really can't do anything about it. And then the last shot of him is just in bed with the mother-in-law while she has sex with the not the handyman, the caretaker. And I don't know what Ari Aster's always got to have like some type of mommy issue type of thing in his movie, but he does. So, that was another thing. I was like, Jesus Christ, bro, just get over your fucking mom for a second. You got to. Like, there's no fucking way the last shot you're going to have him just be paralyzed in the bed and getting fucked, or his mother-in-law getting fucked right next to him because they share the same bed with the caretaker. It is just like, get your shit together mentally. You could go see a fucking therapist, dude. But overall, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. I was very concerned because Bo Afraid did leave a bad taste in my mouth from him, and I thought I thought Ari Aster did a bounce right back as, as a great director. Like I said, like Bo Was Afraid is just such a vanity project in my eyes that it wasn't like terribly directed or anything. I just felt like either you just let it all out. I guess, okay, you want to let it all out on a project that like win or lose, I got to make the project that I wanted to make. But I thought you really stamped yourself as, okay, like I'm back to being curious of what your next film is. Joaquin, what can I say about Joaquin's acting? It's always great. Pedro, it's good to see him in a different role. I just feel like he's one of those guys that, like, it's too much out of the film that him, you feel like you know him so much that where you see him on screen, you just get distracted. But I thought he did an excellent job too. I thought he played a great scumbag, politician. So I do think this film is a little bit under the radar, because it's not getting any attention from the Oscars or anything. I didn't think so. But One Battle After Another isn't that far off from this movie, in terms of talk about its political climate, and yeah. So Eddington has got my no other choice, and Eddington are very I think two films that you should just give a shot, and whatever your politics are, what Eddington does is they do poke fun of both sides of it. If no other choice, I think it's just a solid overall film about just a watching a man's journey and making terrible decisions with his back against the wall. And that one I would say go support. I would say definitely go see in theaters. It is with the crowd was loving it, and both have very funny moments in this movie where it was actually just a kind of relief for everything to be so tensed up and whatnot. Uh, but yeah, I'm gonna give Eddington. I'll give it an 8.5, and I give No Other Choice an 8. They're very both similar. I actually did not think I would have Eddington higher ranked than that. I was going to it and with very more open minded. I think that's what helped a lot more of it because I enjoyed it a lot more. Uh, but I was definitely go see those two. And shit, dude, like what else? What else? I think those other three movies like I'm gonna see this week. Other than that, I have to go see Mercy, which I'm not really looking forward to. But this is part of the game. You gotta see all the other movies, and luckily Discount Tuesday exists for a reason, so you can not spend so much money on I think when I watch that movie, I just gotta break down Chris Pratt's like film choices. I think he's just breathing in the paychecks that he gets at this point. I mean, he's got Guardians paychecks, and then after that, it's like I just need to keep working to just maintain the lifestyle that I have. But like I said, he just at this point he's had no other choice, right? Oh, hey, look at that! Look at the fucking little stupid ass joke that I just made right there. Well, I guess I'll just see you guys next week. Thanks for joining in the film room, and we'll see you next time.